what else? I've been with AWS for, it will be 3 years in December. And so, yeah, it's been quite exciting too, because this role has exposed me, or it's really opened up my world, because now I get to work with people from all kinds of places, just outside of just where I am. And it has expanded my scope, and it has taught me so much. And I really appreciated engaging with all of you and everything that I've learned from all of you. So thank you for this invite. So I'm just gonna get right into it, or maybe just quickly before I start the talk, a bit about my background before AWS. I've been in tech now for a long time. And when I talk about it, I always say I've been in tech longer than some of you have been alive. I think it's true. So I started out as a software developer, and then I moved on and I became a systems analyst. Then I moved on to business analyst. Then I moved on to solutions architect. Then cloud happened, and then I became a cloud engineer. One day I'll talk about how I did because when I talk about it, it sounds like it was easy, but it was not easy. Become a cloud engineer, and that was the role that I held just before this role. So when I talk to people about transitioning and moving on and always making sure you keep up, as much as it's what's happening in the world, I do talk from experience as well. Each of those moves, there was a reason behind them. So if you invite me back, we can talk about career transitions. Maybe I'll talk about all the moves, why I did them, and how I did them. So can I share my screen? Because I'll start there, talk about generative AI and how it's impacting tech careers.
Yeah, sure. You can go ahead.
I've
I have
got
moved the
permission
host
to
to
share.
you. Yeah. Okay. I think you are
Okay.
the host now. You
Okay.
can go ahead. Thank you. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Once I start my talk, I will not be able to see uh, messages in the chat. So if you want to stop me and ask me something, just unmute yourself and say it, and I'll come back onto the chat and we can discuss. I am hoping to have as much engagement with you as possible. As much as I'm here to just share what I've learned so far, I'd like to learn from you as well. So as much engagement, when I ask a question, please, if you can just help me by just throwing out a few questions, whether you unmute yourself or you put in the chat, or you ask me questions as well. And I will be just asking you some questions here and there as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so we're here to talk about generative AI and its impact on tech careers. Before I start, can I ask, you can just put in the chat for me, have you in the chat, have you engaged with generative AI at all in the past couple of months, about a year? And if you have, can you think of an application or an app that you've used to engage with generative AI? I'll give you about a minute just to type something in the chat. Have you engaged with it, and what example of a chat or of a generative AI have you engaged with? I almost gave it away. You probably have, Sadiq, but we'll talk about it. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah, ChatGPT, being frank, that is spot on. So yes, so we have been engaging with generative AI, and it's taken the world by storm. We know this through apps like ChatGPT, which Frank just mentioned now in the app, and it has allowed us to experience how powerful the latest machine learning models have become. So you can use generative AI is a type of AI that lets you create new content and ideas. So when you talk about ChatGPT, you've gone there to create your bio. I know I've used ChatGPT in the past to create my bio, and people use it for those kind of things. You want to put together a letter. I know when it first came out, there were all the concerns around the fact that people sometimes are using it to write their dissertations at university. So you can create all kinds of content, and this content can range from conversations. If we have time later on, I will show you a demo where you can actually use generative AI to create a conversation. You can use it to create stories. You can use it to create images. I think what you're looking at right now are images that have been created using generative AI. I went onto an app, which I will show you later on, and I typed in text, and these were the images that I got. And you could guess in the chat what were my prompts, what were my texts, what did I ask for, what did I, and to get all these images that we're looking at. So you can create images, videos, and you can create music as well. What is behind generative AI is powerful, large machine learning models. So now that we know that generative AI is different from other types of AI, like machine learning or deep learning, let's look at how is it actually different. If you have engaged, you know of deep learning and you know of other normal machine learning, you can already see that it's different to them. Now let's look at how is it actually different to these other types of machine learning. So these are the traditional forms of machine learning. And we first look at the normal or simple machine learning. Right at the top, you have the normal machine learning or traditional form of machine learning that we know. That one takes a simple input, and it uses input could be like a number, and then it maps it to a simple output, which is a value that you can predict. So traditional machine learning, simple input, and you get simple output. And then the next layer that you get is deep learning. With deep learning, you take a complicated input and then you produce a simple output. An example could be you have your input complex. Your input could be a picture from the internet, and the picture has got a big picture has got a lot of other images on it, and you could be asking it to tell you if there is a dog, let's say, or if there's a car in that big complex picture. So you've taken a complex input, and then it tells you yes or no. So that is the simple output that you get out of it. Or what we now are looking at with generative AI, your foundation models that take complex input and they give you complex output. So complex input could be a complex sentence that you've typed, which is what I did to get the images that you were looking at just now. And you got a complex output, which is an image. It's made up of so many maps and so many values to get the image that we actually saw. So that's generative AI using foundation models, complex input and getting complex output. So now that we've looked at the three different types of artificial intelligence, let's take a closer look at these foundation models that I'm talking about that are behind generative AI. So how do they work? With a foundation model, you have a pre-trained model that is trained on extremely large data sets whose data that is the input has been scraped from the internet, from the public internet. So it is information and data that is in the public domain, like Wikipedia, like blog posts that exist on the internet. All of this has been scraped into these foundation models, and all of that data has then been used to train these foundation models. That's why when you input that complex sentence, it has an idea of what to generate as output, because it has all that data from everywhere that has been trained on. And this information is gathered at scale. It is an expensive exercise to do, yeah, and you need huge machines to do the training. But that's not what we're going to look at today. But that's how you actually get to have a foundation model. So now that we've looked at generative AI and what it is and what's behind it, let's look at how it is impacting tech careers, or it's going to impact tech careers as we know them. So, who on the call remembers when chatbots first became a thing, or has any of us interacted with a chatbot, or can you give an example of a chatbot? I'll give 10 seconds. From Frank, yes, that's correct. Snapchat, I've never used it, Precious, but I would think, yeah. Anyone who has interacted with a chatbot, or do you have an example of a chatbot that you can give? Five seconds. Yes. Okay. Ahmad. Yeah. Customer support from your bank. Aisha. That's perfect. Or while shopping. Yeah. That's perfect. So chatbots are just one of the ways in which artificial intelligence has played a very big role in how many aspects of the world today are augmented and transformed. And just like the example that Aisha gave and Ahmad, it's when you have a human-like conversation with a machine. And that was already using some form of artificial intelligence. And it's mainly used to enhance customer experience, like we've just had now. And when you get virtual agents and when you get chatbots. And at contact centers, they like to use chatbots or standalone apps or platforms. So like when you engage with your app, like you mentioned with AliExpress. So those are just some of the use cases of chatbots. So we're already looking at how artificial intelligence has already been impacting the world that we live in. And this is the traditional artificial intelligence or machine learning that I talked about. So, as tech professionals, we do have a front row seat in this advancement of AI. We were already there with the modern artificial intelligence. And earlier on, I looked at the different types of content that you can create using generative AI. I talked about text, images, and the images that we looked at that have been generated using artificial intelligence. So with this ability to create new content and perform a lot of the tasks that humans use to perform, generative AI's rise and integration into the world that we live in today has been quite astounding. I'm sure you've been seeing all over the internet the excitement, people wanting to try out a new offering of generative AI and see what they can actually get out of it. So because it has been able to do very close to what we've been doing all along, it's starting to transform the jobs that we do and the functions across industries. And this has kind of like happened overnight. So it's not a surprise that the prospect of all these capabilities of generative AI are raising concerns about jobs and jobs displacement, with predictions of how work disrupted. I know when all these other offerings of generative AI really became a thing last year, and we had to develop our advocates. We are at the forefront of technology. We go out there to our customers, which is you, our audiences, and talk about the latest and the greatest. I did say, for me, where I am, I'm going to take my time because as much as it's exciting to jump into the exciting new tech, I also wanted to understand the story that we're going to talk about today, how it's affecting people's jobs. And I mean, we are in a continent where so many of us aren't as privileged as the rest of the world. So how are we going to go and be super excited about something that we're hearing that is going to displace jobs? So I wanted to understand that first before I introduce and talk about the technologies. So we want to talk about this job displacement today and this concern that is actually surrounding generative AI. So there's a report. I'm going to share these links at the end of the talk. There's a report by Goldman Sachs, and it talks about the fact that generative AI is introducing this acceleration to how tasks are automated. All of this, the automation, and let's look at automation as a keyword. It's good news if you're looking to save costs and you're looking to be more productive. Oh, I thought someone was talking to me. Sorry. Can we mute? Sadiq, can you help me mute?
Yeah, you, Venezuela, you can mute me. You can mute him. You are the host, please. I'm trying to mute
Am
him.
I the host? Okay. Okay, I'm trying to find the person, then I can mute them. Thanks. Okay, I'll go back to the talk. So there's a report by Goldman Sachs, and it talks about the fact that this introduction is accelerating task automation, and that's good for cost saving and it's good for productivity. The ability of this advancement to generate content that is different to what humans can actually do is starting to break down that barrier between humans and machines, and it's a good advancement. But it also has a potential impact to really disrupt the labor market, and that's a big concern for a lot of people. So there's already been a study that was done in both the US and Europe looking at tasks that people actually do at work. And the report is already finding that about 2/3 of these tasks of these current jobs are already exposed to some form of AI automation. And it's also saying that generative AI could further go to substitute about a fourth of the current jobs that people do today. So the concern that I mentioned earlier on, it's there for a reason. If you look at all these estimates that are from these reports and research done that Goldman Sachs is talking about, and if you take it outside of the US and Europe and you take it to the rest of the world, and now you include us, it is actually estimating that generative AI will expose about 300 million full-time jobs to automation. So I talked about automation. What does automation look like over the years? Because automation is not a new thing. So what if I tell you that throughout history, humans have always depended on technology, and humans have always looked to automate wherever they can. I'm now going to do a very quick catch up of all the industrial revolutions that we've had over the years. So can we remember going right back, the first industrial revolution? With the first industrial revolution, people went from working in the fields using their hands to using tractors. So what that meant is that there was now mechanization of the work they used to do in the fields. Also, with the first industrial revolution, they introduced steam engines. And now with steam engines, you now added a steam train that could carry goods a lot farther and a lot faster than you used to do before when you used to do this like maybe at the back of a horse or used to walk. So that was already some automation that happened with the first industrial revolution, from working with your hands to now using a tractor. And then we had the second industrial revolution, and with this, we had electricity happen. That's a big thing. And then with that, we also had the assembly line that Henry Ford actually invented. And with that, went from assembling a car to now using an assembly line. And that sped up how cars were actually manufactured. So again, it talks to that productivity of doing things because you're now automating. And then we had the third industrial revolution. And with that, what actually happened? We had computers being invented, and we had some memory programmable controls, which actually happened. And what those did, they started to automate an entire production process. Remember, now you went with this, now you went from writing a letter by hand, and you could type it to typing it up using maybe a word processor that you have on your computer. So that was already some form of automation that was introduced over the years. And they say we are in the fourth industrial revolution. And I always am very careful when I say this because I know there's so many of us in some parts of the world that aren't fully enjoying the fourth industrial revolution as yet. And what's happening with the fourth industrial revolution is that we have information that we've been generating from these computers or using these computers. And we've got communication technologies that have come up. That's where social media has now started to happen. And that is taking the third industrial revolution to the next level. So automation has always been so now in the fourth industrial revolution, and there are so many technologies that actually enable the fourth industrial revolution. Technologies like the Internet of Things, which is where you take an object and you connect it to the internet, and the two of them now start to talk to each other. You have big data. Big data you can scrape from social media, and you can use analytics to analyze this big data. Like, think of a company that now uses analytics to check sentiments of its customers on their or on social media. Like, are my customers quite happy? What are they saying about me on social media? You have robots and cobots, where you've now in assembly lines, you've introduced a robot. So instead of using a human to make package bags of tomatoes, you now have a robot actually doing this. And you've got 5G network, you've got artificial intelligence and machine learning, which we are looking at today, and you've got cloud and edge computing, which is also another technical enabler of fourth industrial revolution. And I talk about cloud. As much as it is one of the enablers, it's also at the center of all the enablers of the fourth industrial revolution. It's at the center of it, but that's not what we're looking at today. I'm just trying to say there's always been an advancement in technology. There's always been new technologies that come up. So what can we do? Looking at everything that we've talked about, knowing that work is always changing, what can we actually do about that? So as generative AI continues to advance, we cannot avoid the fact that some job roles are going to go through some form of transformation. So what we can do, instead of resisting it, we can actually embrace the technology and explore how we can actually use it to enhance, to speed up, and to support the work that we do today. So this report, sorry, I just need to grab some water quickly. So there's this report, there's a research that was done by Stack Overflow. What came out of this research, it actually says that 70% of the people that they surveyed, and they surveyed more than 67,000 developers, and 70% of them are already using or planning to use an AI tool, so starting to embrace it. But what it also said is that of the same people, only 3 or less than 3% of them actually say they trust AI. And what does that tell us? Is that you don't trust AI because you are not part of because you're not part of building AI. So the trust will go up the more of us that get involved behind the scenes of AI. And we're going to talk about that. So what are some of the roles? I'm just going to look at a few roles. The list of roles that will be changed or transformed by generative AI is long. And I'm going to look at just a few of the common ones today. And if there are any other roles that you want me to come back and talk about it another time, just let us know, and then we can dive deep into those. But I'm also going to share a lot of content for you where you can go and just look up some more. So generative AI is going to change, revolutionize software development. And it's going to do this by automating tasks that used to be very mundane and routine. It's going to enable software developers to rapidly do prototyping and to customize solutions. Developers can leverage AI for code suggestions, for bug detection, and even for generating some segments of code. And this will help them reduce the time that it normally would take them to write code. What's good news out of this? And that was excitement for me when I saw the first example of what we're going to look at, is that for those of us who are no longer, we either are not full-time software developers anymore, or we're not developers and we want to become developers. What's great with these tools is that over time, it's going to start to blur that line between someone who writes code and someone who doesn't write code. All of that is going to make it easier for someone who doesn't write code to transition into being a coder because of these tools. So I am sure that we are familiar with generative AI, how it has started to emerge as a valuable skill for a software developer, for an engineer or a data scientist. This valuable skill is going to become important if you're a software developer, that you have some skill around generative AI. This could either be at a conceptual level, where you know what the technology is and what it does, that you can have the conversation, or at some hands-on levels with tools like ChatGPT that we talked about before. And maybe some of us on the call might be familiar with GitHub Copilot as well. That's another. So you may be familiar already with GitHub Copilot. But look very closely what's happening in this right now. Just a comment in normal language of what this person does, and the function has been automatically generated for them. And this is using a tool known as Amazon Code Whisperer. I use of GitHub Copilot because you might be more familiar with this, but this is Amazon's offering, Amazon Code Whisperer. And now we're going to talk about what this is. Amazon Code Whisperer is an AI coding companion that helps you as a developer by generating code recommendations for you based on a comment that you've just made using natural language and code that maybe you already have in your IDE. So that's what Amazon Code Whisperer does. That's why it goes back to what I said, that if you're not a coder, that line between coders and non-coders is starting to really be blurred. So Amazon Code Whisperer is an offering that we have as AWS, and you can install this into a number of IDEs like VS Code. I use mine on VS Code. PyCharm, AWS Cloud9, which is an IDE we have on AWS, or the AWS Lambda console. And it supports languages like Python, Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, and C#. So we're now looking at how, as a software developer, your world is already changing because of generative AI. Another role that is hugely being impacted by generative AI is the world of a data scientist. So as the use of generative AI is starting to grow, the role of a data scientist is also looking to evolve quite a lot. This technology, generative AI, is promising to streamline operations for a data scientist, operations like data cleansing, like feature engineering. All of these operations usually take a lot of time. So AI coming into that space is going to help them with productivity and cost saving as well. And if you already are coding in Python and are you looking to go into the data science field, being proficient or being good in Python is even more important now. So that's a skill that you can learn, so you'll be able to play in the generative AI space. Prompt engineering, I am sure since generative AI became a thing, we've been hearing prompt engineers, prompt engineering. You need to learn prompt engineering is a skill that you need. So what is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is when you ask a question and then the question that you've asked is going to get you the best output from the model that's in the background. I talked to, when we looked at the complex output and complex input, and complex output, that's what we were talking about. What I have on the screen is an example of a prompt and an output. So a prompt just said a red sports car, and you got a picture, an image of a car. So complex input, and you got a complex output. So prompt engineers, and why are prompt engineers important? They're going to be important because this technology is emerging. It's very new. There's still a lot of cleansing and then overseeing of what's actually coming out. So a prompt engineer is important because they craft the effective instruction for that AI system. So those prompts, you should be able to get what you ask for, no matter how you construct your sentence or your question. So that's what prompt engineers are going to be looking to do, to refine how when you enter your prompt and it talks to the model, how that engagement actually happens. So in addition to the role of a prompt engineer being technical, a prompt engineer is also very critical because of the ethics side of things. The last thing you want is for your customer to type a question or a sentence in the prompt and they get something that's offensive. So Prompt engineers are going to be very important to make sure that they mitigate against that bias. And now, talking about mitigating bias, another role is an AI ethicist. So this is a person that oversees ethics of AI. We didn't have this role in my team before, but we now have a developer advocate who looks into AI ethics. So this is a role that actually exists, and it has become quite relevant now. So I talked about bias and mitigating about bias is a growing need that we address the complex issues around AI, around ethics, around regulation. And so let's talk more about what this actually looks like. We need to find the balance in building generative AI. As much as we're excited about the innovation that we're getting out of it, we need to make sure that we mitigate around the risks and the challenges that are emerging because of that. We need to be able to strike that balance that makes sure that um, um, with everything that generative AI offers us, our customers and we are still safe on the internet, we're secure, and how this technology is developing, there's actually transparency behind it. Building generative AI ethically or building generative AI responsibly is very challenging. So, and this is because these models are broad and open ended. Remember, I said these models are trained against data that's been scraped against the internet. Anything, and we know anything and everything exists on the internet. So it's hard to build generative AI responsibly. So we need people who are going to oversee these ethics and just make sure that as we do this, everything is all ethical. And what is responsible AI, when I talk about ethics, we want to make sure that the solutions that we build are fair, that we can explain what's behind the scenes, that there's privacy and there's security, that there's governance and there's transparency. And that we are taking a people-centered approach, that we're building diverse teams. That's why I said earlier on that people are not trusting AI because they don't know who built this thing that we're interacting with. So the more of us, or someone that you know, people that look like you, but are involved in building AI, the more you're going to learn to trust it. So risks that are starting to come up are things like when we talk about hallucination is when you type your prompt and what you get out is not what you actually ask for. Like let's say you type, show me a picture of a dog and you get a cat. That's hallucination. So you need to be able to guard against things like that. You need to make sure that we guard against things like toxicity, uh, people stealing others' IP. I used the example earlier on about people using ChatGPT to write their dissertations. We need to be guarding against things like that and data privacy. So the role of an AI ethicist is very important. And so another role that's quite impacted is cloud engineers. Maybe some of us on the call are. So how generative AI is going to change things for cloud engineers is it's going to take what you were doing as a cloud engineer, it's going to streamline it for you. Say you were using infrastructure as code to generate, to provision your infrastructure in the cloud. Now you can actually have generative AI produce that infrastructure as code for you, and then that then provisions that infrastructure for you in the cloud. I talked about, we looked at the example before where you just use natural language and you got code. Now you could do that for your infrastructure as code, and that way provision your infrastructure in the cloud. And another role that's being impacted by generative AI or transformed are security analysts. I don't know if there are any security engineers, consultants on the call. If you are, maybe you can share with us at some point how you think your role is going to be impacted by generative AI. But what we know tends to happen for security analysts, especially, is that you end up being stuck in time consuming tasks that are, and these tasks could be things like how you manage your data or basic analysis or security analysis that you have to do. Now you can actually use generative AI to automate all these routine activities that you normally would be doing manually. and have them take up so much of your time. So it frees you up to go and do things that are more interesting and exciting for you. So talking about security and routine tasks that you used to do as a security analyst. There is a feature, I already talked about Amazon Code Whisperer, which is our coding companion on AWS. There's another feature of Amazon Code Whisperer, and this is to enable you to enhance code security. With this feature, what you can do is you can scan your code to detect how to find vulnerabilities. You can align your code to best practices for tackling security vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are as outlined by OWASP, Open Worldwide Application Security Project. Things like now you can use in your IDE, you install Amazon Code Whisperer. You can now just, there's a click of a button, scan for security, perform a security scan, and to look for things like SQL injections. Have you hard coded your passwords and things in your code? And will let you know there and then, and you can actually go and fix that. So instead of you scanning for all of that manually or having someone else come scan for it, it now can do that for you as well. So that's just another use. And also, where you can use generative AI, you could use generative AI to learn. I'm just using an example of cybersecurity here, but you can use it to do a lot of the learnings that we've been doing, all those certifications that we study for. There is so much data on the internet on how to prepare for an AWS certification. There is enough data on that. So if there is a model that's been trained with that data, you can use that model to create an application that now will help you prepare for an AWS certification. So you no longer need to go and read all these blog posts and ask all these people. You can actually have a front-end application that engages with these models, and it just tells you how to prepare. I've just used cybersecurity here as an example, but really anything that you want to learn, you can now use generative AI for that. And the last role that I'm going to look at is network engineering. Network operations are made up of a lot of complex business processes, and these require that you go through terabytes of data every day to optimize the network, to perform root cause analysis when things go wrong. And this can take time. This can take hours and days. Now, using generative AI, you can use the data that you have and you can provide it with interactive guidance and prompts to speed up and simplify all this optimization that you're looking to do. So 90% of all the images, I would actually say 98% of all the images that I used in this talk were actually generated using generative AI, using a tool that we have on AWS, Amazon Bedrock. And what is Amazon Bedrock? Amazon Bedrock is a service that we have on AWS that provides you the easiest way to build and scale generative AI applications with foundation models, with these large models that I talk about. Using a single API, you can now leverage multiple models on AWS, and you can customize these models, and you can bring your own data to customize these models. And there are a couple of use cases that you actually can use Amazon Bedrock for.
What are the tests?
Now let's look at that. So we have a couple of models on AWS that are behind the scenes to Amazon Bedrock. And some we own as Amazon, and some we've partnered with other AI partners and they own them and we use them. And these models are for text generation, are for image generation, which I've just talked about, are for generating conversations, are for generating videos and music. So all of that content that I talked about, we have a model that you can actually engage with and you can generate the content that you're actually looking for. That's just an overview of what Amazon Bedrock looks like. If we still have time, I can actually go onto the console and we can play around and I'll show you what I actually mean. But that's just an overview of what it looks like. Those foundation models that I talked about that are behind the scenes. Looking at Playground there, Playground represents the different types of content that I talked about. or the different types of use case that I talked about. So it can be a chat, a conversation, text, an image. So to conclude, the rise of generative AI is introducing both challenges and opportunities for us as tech professionals. It's important, though, that we approach this transformative landscape with the willingness to adapt and to learn continuously. Generative AI has the potential to reshape the nature of the work that we do, a lot of the work that we do. But it also presents exciting opportunities for new roles that probably don't even exist today, that it might actually create. Human machine collaboration is going to play a very important role in maximizing the benefits of generative AI, as humans do possess the unique qualities like creativity and emotional intelligence. And these no machine can ever replace. And because we bring those, we will always have a place. So if we just embrace the partnership that we can have as humans with these machines, we can shape a future where technology complements human skills and it fosters innovation. It's important that we maintain this balanced perspective, that we understand the impact of generative AI on the job landscape. Understanding this is going to be significant, but humans remain what is indispensable because, as I said, we have the creativity, we have the emotional intelligence. So you can start your generative AI journey today. I talked about Amazon Code Whisperer. You can use that, you can install that onto your IDE. You go onto your marketplace on your IDE, go into marketplace, look for AWS Toolkit, install, you'll find Code Whisperer there, install it. So you could deploy Amazon Code Whisperer for your immediate productivity gains today in your IDE. You could explore the foundation models that we have to Amazon Bedrock. You could get started on a point of on a POC for a use case that you have in your mind. I talked about the example like you could build an application that you could use for testing and for learning, training, and preparing for a set. You could look into that's how you could get started. And we have resources on AWS. I'm going to share a link when I'm done with this. We have resources that you could leverage on AWS that will help you get started with generative AI. There is a workshop on how to get started with Amazon Bedrock. There are step-by-step tutorials that we have. There are hands-on workshops that we have that you could explore. So this QR code is the most important one, and I'm going to share the link. This is important for me because I want to keep having this conversation, and I can't have this conversation in a way that's helpful if I don't get feedback from you. So I'm going to ask that you complete this survey. Please, it's only got 2 questions. First question is to say, was this talk actually helpful? So there are 5 stars. If it helped you, give it a 5 or a 4. If it was completely did not help you, you give it a 1. And then the second question that's in there, you tell us, what will you build using generative AI? If you haven't thought of something as yet, you can just put not applicable, NA in there. But please, the first question especially is super important for me because it's the only way I'll be able to know if this is actually value adding for anybody. So thank you for your time. And you can find me, I am on LinkedIn. And that's it for me. I'm now going to exit the presentation and come back on the chat, and I will share all the links that I've been talking about in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benila. Thank you so much, Bliswa. We really appreciate, and this is a very good presentations, and truly it's well educated and it guides us, and definitely we are going to try it, all the API you just requested for us to do, and I believe that the participants will give the outcomes. Yeah, it's a very knowledgeable presentations, and thank you so much for your time. So in case if there is any questions, please feel free to forward the questions so that before we round up the meeting, please. Thank you.
Okay. So I will answer questions as I paste all the links in the chat. So you're welcome to ask me your questions if you have them. You can unmute. So while I wait for questions,
Hello.
can I ask? Hello, yes?
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. My question is, can you use AI to learn about AWS?
To learn about?
Hello.
Hi, please will you repeat that?
My question is to learn AWS.
Hello, Beliswa. It seems like
Yes.
I omit everybody because of the background noise. So
Okay.
so you can go ahead and answer the questions if you get his
Oh, okay.
question.
So you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yes, yeah. I did say, yeah. So the two ways in which you could use generative AI to learn AWS. So you could engage with the services that I talked about, Amazon Code Whisperer and Amazon Bedrock. These are generative AI services on AWS. So learning those services, you are learning generative AI on AWS. So that's one way. And the second way that you could learn generative AI on AWS is, remember I used that example of a use case where you build an application for how to prepare for an AWS certification. So that way you would also be using generative AI to learn AWS. So yes, you can.
Okay, good one. There is another person is asking a questions. I think he was asking, he's working as a network engineer. But please let me be. Can the generative AI be beneficial for network engineers? The question
Yes.
came from. Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm actually a network engineer. I'm going to share a YouTube video for you to go watch. Colleagues of mine actually, um, they recorded this YouTube. We have developer advocates who specialize in all things networks, and they had a conversation with someone who is a specialist of generative AI, and they were talking about, will this affect network engineers? So here is the YouTube in the chat. Let me just go and grab it again. Link. I've just there. So check that YouTube. That YouTube is a conversation between a networks specialist developer advocate and a generative AI specialist. And they're talking about how generative AI will impact network engineers. So that's a very good one for you to watch. I'm going to share another link where it's another conversation for how you can actually use generative AI to build applications to help you learn and prepare for certifications. That's a YouTube link as well that I'm sharing. So you can check that link as well. So someone asked the question, how can generative AI be useful to digital sales personnel? that is another role that's being impacted by generative AI. Sales personnel are all about relationship building. And now you can actually bring generative AI to automate some of that relationship building that you do with your customers. So it impacts them as well. And we have tools like there is a contact center tool on AWS. It's known as Amazon Connect. So it's used at contact centers. So as a customer, you call and you engage with an agent. And there's starting to be some use cases of generative AI that are being identified for this as well. And it's enhancing relationships, enriching conversations with customers. Can I share the survey before everyone goes so that I get that feedback? And then I will share all the other information that before everyone disappears, please, here is the survey link. I really do need your information. I need your feedback there, please. And then I'm going to share the workshops that will help you get started with Amazon Bedrock. If I had time, I would have done a demo for you, but maybe I can come back and do that another time. So this is a workshop that you can use, that you can just check this workshop out, and it will help you get started with Amazon Bedrock, which is how you engage with all those models behind the scenes that have been trained on all this data that's been all over the internet. So that's all the links that I have to share. If there's anything else that you would like me to share, just let me know and I can go find it and I'll come back and paste it here. That's it from me, Sadiq. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, Blissua. In short, sorry, it seems like we couldn't find the links. Maybe I saw some people are asking the links also, and even me, I couldn't find it in the chat, please.
You can find them in the chats?
Yeah, please, can you check? Maybe you forward it to everyone. Yeah, maybe you're sending
I think I've been sending them to Ahmad because he's been.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So let me just resend them. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the first one is this one is how is the YouTube channel about you network engineers. Can you now all see it, right? And then here is the YouTube channel for YouTube video for security specialists. You are seeing the links now, right? Sadiq?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, you are seeing them now.
The link
Okay.
is visible. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Now let me share that survey that I'm asking everyone to please complete. Okay, there's the survey. Please will complete. I won't be able to share the slides, unfortunately. I'm looking to convert this talk into a blog post, and that's why I really need your feedback. Once I share it convert it into a blog post, I'll be able to share that. Sadiq, I can let you know, and you can share with the audience once the blog post is ready. So I really do need that feedback so that I can do all these things. And that's now I'm sharing the workshop for getting started with with Amazon Bedrock on AWS. So yeah, that's it from me. If I don't see any other question, how can generative AI be used in solar power systems? I'm not sure, because what I will also say is that this technology is so new, it's emerging. And because it's emerging, we're still finding use cases for it. And when I say we cannot afford to not hop on the train, it's exactly for that, because you come with your own perspective, and your own perspective is and your own use case. And with that, you can start to lead all these advances in the directions that you think are quite useful. So if no one is looking into how this can be used in solar, you could come with that. But also, solar systems and Internet of Things, there definitely is a use case there, but I just haven't come across it yet. So I'm sure somehow there is a way to connect it. Okay, so I see you all have the links. There is no certification yet for generative AI. It is so new. The certification that we have right now is for normal machine learning. So there is that. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Bliswa. Okay, I think thank you so much once again. Okay, I think maybe we can just round up the webinar. And thank you so much for your times, everyone. And thank you so much for the sacrifice you give us. And I believe that this thing is going to go a long way. And definitely we are going to give the outcomes of the survey. Yeah. Okay. The link is here. Please let's kindly put the outcome so that we can pass it through. Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your sacrifice. Thank you so much. Okay, thank
Thank you. Thank you, Sadiq, again for the invite. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your questions. Yeah, and yeah, thanks for your input. I look forward to your feedback
you.
and to
Sure.
hear what you're building. Thank you.
Sure. Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.